Saka has left my FPL team and I've also taken a -4, and we're going to discuss all of that in today's Game Week 18 team selection video, as well as deep diving into the best players to buy for your team. So as always, if you look forward to it, make sure you drop a like on the video, aiming for 200, and of course, if you can, smash that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So just a quick recap on my Game Week 17 team, just to give you a bit of an idea on the problem players that I had going into Game Week 18. Small red arrow to 271k, no dramas, and 75 points. And I ended up only having 10 players, with of course my transfer being 8 Nori to Munoz as a bit of a long-term play. But Anderson didn't even come on, so it was a bit of a disaster, but Mo Salah covering over a lot of the cracks. Now, looking at my players in isolation, we first and foremost have to take our eyes on Bukayo Saka, because if you didn't know, he has gone off with a hamstring injury in the game in Crystal Palace, and Arteta has come out and said he is expected to be out for multiple weeks. Some suggest that he could be out until the end of February. So in my eyes, it's clear selling Bukayo Saka is the play, even for a -4, and hopefully we'll come to a conclusion on the best replacement in today's video. So Saka is an immediate sell in my team. Also Cunha. Now, I really do like Cunha as a pick. However, the underlying numbers aren't fantastic. We've spoken about this on the channel. He is a guy who is just an absolute baller. So he's going to convert the chances that other forwards can't. But with the fixtures coming up for him, they are pretty terrible. And the big thing, we have that looming ban, which I think we all know is going to come eventually. Sounds like, because they haven't done anything on Christmas Eve, they are probably going to let him play on the Boxing Day fixtures, and then he could be banned from Game Week 19 onwards. And with so many price changes happening, the only thing we need to monitor with Cunha is that if the player that you want to replace him with is continuing to rise, then you might be priced out. And that might have been a reason why I could have sold Cunha last night, but of course we will touch on that in today's video. Outside of that, I'm pretty content with the rest of the team. I don't think there are any other major dramas. Trent and Gabriel look great long term. Salah, Palmer are just absolute glue guys in the team. And Gordon, while he's been disappointed, the numbers have been good, and I don't feel a desperation to get him out of the team right now because of that Saka injury. So let me know the points you got in the comment section, but let's take a look at the players that I was considering as a Saka replacement before coming to which one I went for. So when we are looking at Saka replacements, of course, in my previous video, I did a bit of a deep dive on 3 very popular picks. I just want to go for a bit of a spitball section here where I just go through the ones that I think are being spoken about the most in the community and give you my own personal opinions. So you can see them on the right-hand side there. In the watch list, we have got the most expensive in Son, Foden, Bruno Fernandes, Odegaard, Maddison, Luis Diaz, Jota, Martinelli, Ismaila, Sarr. I've ruled out people like Ahmad, Enzo. I think that's too cheap, and I just wouldn't have them over a Sarr, for example. And I think there are a few other considerations out there, but I just haven't included them. Like De Bruyne, I just can't really sit here and promote him as a pick. So we're just going to quickly go through these as a bit of a conclusion. 30 seconds tops on each player. So a lot of people talk about Son. For my team, I just didn't see the temptation to go there. Now, the numbers have been decent. The minutes have been a little bit erratic for Son standards. This is usually a 90-minute man each and every week. Not much the case this season for him, even coming off early in that Liverpool game on 81 minutes. Now, the fixtures coming up for Spurs are mixed. I don't like Game Week 18. Game Week 19 now looks okay, but a new manager at Wolves, you never know what to expect. Newcastle at home, I mean, I think there'll be goals in that game. And then Arsenal away until we get into them great fixtures. I just don't think the entry point right now is for Son, other player at 9.8 million. With obviously the other considerations, 9 or less, I just can't justify the additional 1 million to go for someone like a Son, especially when you have someone like a Maddison available. Now, the problem with Maddison, of course, is that the minutes are all over the place. He had a good game against Liverpool to all extent, but only played 57 minutes. For me, when I look at these minutes, this automatically rules Maddison out as a pick. We touched on the fixtures. They are very mixed right now. I would rather let the next 4 game weeks just happen, see if Maddison suddenly gets an uptick in minutes. But right now, I just think that, based on the minutes, is just enough for us to completely avoid James Maddison. But I get it if people want to go for a bit of a vibes pick. Now, in terms of going for vibes picks, people are talking about Phil Foden right now. Now, I get it. Scored in Game Week 17. A lot of people probably thinking he is back. But are Man City back? I think the answer is no right now. 4.4% owned is ridiculous for someone like Phil Foden. But when we look at it, 1 goal, 1 assist this season. I know he's been out injured for a little bit of time, but really when we look at it, it's only over this period here and obviously this period here. I do think he will continue to get 90 minutes. And when we look at the fixtures coming up for Phil Foden, they are amazing. Like, I can't believe a lot of us are going into this period here without Man City assets. I mean, they've got Brentford away as a red ticker. There's no world Brentford away is a bad fixture for Man City. So if you want to go for Phil Foden, like, I literally can't knock it from a fixture perspective because they are unbelievable. And if Man City are going to turn a corner, then I think we will see it over this period. But for me, I'd actually want to see that moment happen. Like, I actually want to see Man City dominate the game and see the old Man City. Until then, I just cannot justify paying 9.1 million for a player like Phil Foden. So Son's out the equation, Maddison out the equation, Foden out the equation for me. We have to touch on the Liverpool too. Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota, because they're getting a lot of love right now. Now, it comes without saying that you're buying players who are going to be rotation risks, because we've seen Mo Salah is locked in on that right-hand side. We know Arne Slot likes Gakpo on that left at times, obviously rotating with Luis Diaz. And down the middle, we know that Darwin Núñez is not an Arne Slot favourite, and he does have Jota available. So I think right now, it could be a case of Diaz versus Gakpo on that left-hand side, Jota versus Darwin, or sometimes Diaz down the middle, and Mo Salah just is in a world on his own on that right-hand side. Now, in terms of Luis Diaz, I do think his minutes have been very, very good, but of course, benching here, benching here, benching here. There is no guarantee of these minutes over the foreseeable future. Now, of course, playing 86 minutes against Spurs in game week 17, and on Thursday they're playing Leicester, followed by West Ham away. Is there any certainty that you are going to get the Leicester fixture at home for Luis Diaz when you got Mo Salah to play, you got Jota to play, Gakpo and Darwin Núñez? So even though I do like Luis Diaz, when I look at the fixtures coming up, that is an amazing fixture. And if you miss out on that fixture, then West Ham away, you just don't really know what you're getting. Then Man United at home, I mean, that probably is a great fixture. Forest away, tricky. And then you get some tasty fixtures beyond that. So even though Diaz is an exciting pick, if you don't get that Leicester fixture, then I'd be pretty devastated as an owner, because I think a lot of people are buying in for that week. And unfortunately, I think the same logic is going to apply for Diogo Jota. Now, he's just come back from such a long time out. You can see that here. So even if he does come back and play the Leicester game, I'm only expecting 60, 65 minutes from Diogo Jota. Now, is that enough for him just to automatically bag a load of goals? 100%. I think that easily could happen. But I want a player that is a little bit more longer term. And even though this is fantastic, does he play these? And I think he probably plays one, bench the other, plays one, bench the other. And until I see that guaranteed game time once again for Jota, I cannot justify him. So we are getting rid of a lot of players here. The only ones that remain is Fernandes, Odegaard, Martinelli and Ismaila Sarr. Now, a lot of people talking about Martinelli. I get it. He's exciting as a pick. Played his first 90 minutes pretty much all season in game week 17. The problem, we don't know where he's going to operate in this Arsenal team with Saka out, off the right, off the left. No guarantees in that. Once again, 3% owned. If you want to go in on him, this is the time to do so. Ipswich at home, Brentford away, Brighton away. Personally, I think he now gets really good game time over that period. And I really like Martinelli as a punt. The problem is, of course, do you actually need to go all the way down to this price point at 6.7 million? Because when you got someone like Martin Odegaard, who is sat there, who will now be on penalties at 8.3 million, I probably feel a little bit safer going for Odegaard as the pick, just being on set pieces, being on penalties, as we mentioned, and having that guaranteed game time. So for me, I think Odegaard trumps Martinelli, unless Martinelli enables you to make other moves in your team. Ismaila Sarr, I like. But of course, I think game week 19 is the entry point for him. But if you need to free up funds, he is a great pick. He is a player, personally, spoiler alert, I didn't buy this week, but I am looking to bring in game week 19. So, comes down to this, man. Bruno Fernandes versus Odegaard based on a process of elimination. And I think Odegaard has the fixtures, 100%. But I think Bruno Fernandes just ticks more boxes right now. Anybody that's watched Man United in that Bournemouth game, Bruno had a couple of chances in that game. And when we look at his expected goal involvement, 0.86 versus Bournemouth, 1.37, 0.36, he's always involved in these fixtures for Man United. And the big thing about it is he is a minutes monster pretty much. Yes, he came off 65 minutes, but they were 4-0 up already. And of course came off after 75 minutes against Nottingham Forest. Other than that, this guy's going to play pretty much all the games. And for me, yes, this game's terrible here, but I'm looking at a long-term move for my own personal team. And I think that is an okay fixture. That is a good fixture, terrible, and then some good fixtures long-term for Man United where I'm going to want him. I want this guy till February, and he's the one that really does scare me. So that is why, long process, I've decided to bring Bruno Fernandes into my FPL team. Let me know yours in the comments. So as always for the team selection videos, I wanted to bring up RobT FPL's graphics that he brings up regarding projected goals and clean sheet odds based on the SpreadX market. Always put these in team selection videos. And for me, I always like to make my decisions on my own personal perspective of both the players, the underlying numbers, and of course, just generally the fixtures. What I do like is to have a bit of a third-party look, and this gives exactly that. This is where the money's going in terms of the bets. And I think this is a good way to match back my own personal opinions on the teams. Now, of course, we knew already Man City versus Everton was going to be a fantastic fixture to bring in the likes of Phil Foden. But we've already covered, I don't love it until I actually see it right now. So the games that I want to quickly touch on is Liverpool and Arsenal, because that is what we're talking about right now. People want to bring in a Liverpool asset in the shape of Jota and Diaz. If you get the right one, you know already, that is an incredible fixture, and I don't have to even show you this to tell you it's an unbelievable fixture. And if you roll the dice and you get the right one, happy days. For me, being Trent and a Salah owner, I feel content. 50% chance of a clean sheet looks great, and Trent offers so much in the final third as well. I just don't feel I need to roll the dice on a third Liverpool asset, which I can't really predict the minutes for. Arsenal, 3 projected goals is ridiculous as well, and a 52% chance of a clean sheet. So I look at this and think to myself, Martin Odegaard, as we touched on, I don't think he's playing well, but I think anybody could do well in this game. I think you could chuck me in this fixture and I have a chance of scoring. So there's no doubting that Odegaard could get a double-digit return in this fixture, but it's this fixture in isolation that we're focusing on, not necessarily longer term for Odegaard. And once again, if you want to roll the dice on Martinelli, what an incredible fixture to do so with that. So this kind of covers what we've spoken about. For this week in isolation, go for it if you want to take the punt, especially if you have loads of free transfers available. Otherwise, I think you just accept what you got in your teams and think a bit more long term with your transfers. In terms of captaincy, based on what we are seeing here, I just don't see how you don't go for Mo Salah. His ownership is going to be ridiculous, and we know his minutes are going to be good. We know he's on penalties, and we know he's in unbelievable form. And Leicester are just atrocious under Van Nistelrooy from a defensive perspective. I don't see how Leicester go and put a compact Sean Dyche-esque 4-4-2 into the equation. So for me, Mo Salah, just to kind of spoil it because everybody's doing the same, is the captaincy pick. Now, outside of this, because we have to touch on Man United quickly, 1.8 projected goals. Now, of course, we can paint our own narrative right now of Wolves having a new manager bounce. I think this is going to be a draw. I think there's going to be a score draw in this fixture. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 2-2. And again, if I'm going to get 2 goals from Man United, then I do expect Bruno Fernandes to be involved in some capacity. So that is why I'm very happy bringing in Bruno, because even though they've got less projected goals, I just feel more safe that he could be involved in all of the good stuff that they do in that game. Outside of that, don't think there's too much else to touch on. Hopefully we get some returns from João Pedro in this fixture here. And Chelsea also look good against Fulham. But I've seen Fulham enough times now put up resolute performances against top teams to think Palmer just isn't a consideration for captaincy. The last one I want to touch on, Newcastle 1.8 projected goals. My eyes have been on Alexander Isak for a while now, and I have to make the decision whether to sell Cunha to Alexander Isak with the price swings. When you look at the projected goals for Newcastle at 1.85 and Isak just absolutely dominating everything good that they do, Wolves with that 1.28 projected goals and Cunha's numbers being pretty poor. As I mentioned, he's very much a vibes player, and if he gets any sort of return, he's in and amongst the bonus points. The problem is you've basically just got a Cunha V2 version in Isak, who is just a better finisher, a better player, which is quite hard to beat Cunha, and a better team in Newcastle. And Isak is a monster himself in the bonus points. So when I look at this right now, I do think just pulling the trigger on Cunha to Isak makes a lot of sense for a -4. Even though Cunha could deliver this week, long term, it just feels like the right move. So finally moving into my Game Week 18 team selection, and I can firmly say my team is locked in for Boxing Day. Kicking things off with the goalkeeper. Now, I have a little bit of a decision here. Fabianski away against Southampton versus Sells at home against Spurs, a Tottenham team that are one of the highest scoring teams in the league. But I just don't trust this West Ham defence. And with Southampton with a new manager in charge at home, we could see a bit of a new manager bounce, or at least a feel-good vibe at Southampton. And I do think they have the players to cause problems for West Ham. And Forest, we're just seeing it time and time again now that they are able to frustrate lots of teams in this league. And they are one of the best defences in the league. So I think I just got to go for Sells. And even if he doesn't keep a clean sheet, with Spurs being one of those teams so free scoring, he could rack up some decent saves. And it does feel like a fixture that if Forest do keep a clean sheet in, he could pick up a monster haul with clean sheet and save points, fingers crossed. Moving into defence, obviously I went for Munoz last week, didn't pay off. Hopefully he can basically pay me back with a double-digit return in Game Week 18. I'm going to play him away against Bournemouth. The only other consideration, Anderson away against Chelsea, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And Muniz's underlying numbers offensively are great. So even if he concedes, I know in the back of the mind, there is still a possibility of an attack and return. Then, of course, we've got Trent at home against Leicester. It is what it is. If he gets benched, you just can't predict those things. And it is a phenomenal fixture for our teams. And then Gabriel at home against Ipswich. I only have one Arsenal defensive coverage for this game. So, in a way, maybe conceding isn't the worst thing in the world. But I'm more than happy with Gabriel in my team. He is a lock player for the foreseeable future and such a threat from goal-scoring situations. So, back three picks itself. Goalkeeper, in my eyes, picks itself. Let's move into the midfield because, of course, I have made a transfer there. So moving into my Game Week 18 midfield, and it should come as no surprise if you watched that previous section regarding Saka replacements that I have landed on Bruno Fernandes. Just feel like this is the man that I want long-term for my team, and importantly, he's also the perfect price where I can also enable myself to take a -4 for a particular forward. So that basically ruled out Son, it ruled out Phil Foden as a replacement. Bruno versus Odegaard was very, very tight. I did want a piece of that Ipswich fixture at home, but I just think Bruno long-term is the logical pick, and I still fancy Amorim to do the business for Man United as we progress throughout the season. And Bruno, I think, is going to be the heart of all those good things. So Bruno's in away against Wolves. Outside of that, we got Gordon at home against Villa. I feel like I've been a bit unlucky with Gordon. His numbers have been great. And of course, I tried to bring him in to match Alexander Isak a couple of weeks ago. That is my own fault. Do not feel sorry for me in that situation. That is a bad play by me. But Gordon's numbers have actually been good and better than that of Jacob Murphy's at times, even though he has been the one who has just been ridiculously hauling. So I actually like Gordon as a bit of a differential this week. I don't feel any temptation to move him out to another player. Palmer at home against Fulham, obviously just a lock player in my team alongside Mo Salah at home against Leicester. And I've already touched on, he will be my captain in Game Week 18. And we've also got Semenyo at home against Palace. Now, not ideal because, of course, I'm playing Semenyo versus Munoz. But again, do I think there is a transfer for me to sell Semenyo this week? No, I don't think so, especially with my priority being selling Bukayo Saka. So I am happy with this midfield 5, and of course, going into Game Week 19, I've already touched on the likes of Ismail Assar being on my radar for Southampton at home, so it very much will be a case of how Gordon or Semenyo do this week, depending on what I do the following game week. Finally, moving into my Game Week 18 forwards, and I reluctantly pulled the trigger and sold Cunha to Isak for a -4. Now, anybody that watches these videos will know that I just don't love these sort of moves because I'm getting rid of a player who could absolutely do well on Boxing Day. But the problem with Cunha is that we are just inevitably waiting for this ban to happen. And as soon as that happens, his price is going to absolutely plummet. And the problem is, one of the best players in the game right now, Alexander Isak, is just continuing to rise in price. So I had a decision to make. I made the Bruno move previously. I had the perfect amount of money to do Cunha to Isak. And if I missed out on the opportunity and he was rising in price, I basically had to rule out Isak unless I take a -8 the following game week or in this game week. And it just wasn't a choice for me. I really wanted to go differential and bring in a Gabriel Jesus or a Havertz. But I just need to remember that Isak is playing in a very good Newcastle team right now. And I need to remember as well, they're not involved in European football. So they are just solely focused now on the Premier League. Newcastle have been good for a couple of weeks. The problem, and the one caveat that I've been telling a lot of people is, they are not playing Ipswich, Leicester every single week. But I think I'm seeing enough good things from Newcastle to suggest that they can still do the business against most teams. And when I looked at Isak's fixtures coming up, Villa at home, I think is actually not a great fixture, but I still fancy Newcastle to score at home. And if that does happen, then Isak is going to be the man. Then they've got Man United away, who have been obviously very indifferent. And one thing about Man United is defensively a little bit erratic. And then they got Spurs away. And I was thinking about it and I thought, well, maybe Spurs could do a business on Newcastle and beat them 4-0, which absolutely happened. But we've just seen a 4-3 against Chelsea and we've just seen a 6-3 against Liverpool. Do Newcastle have the capability in their team to press aggressively and hit them in transitions as well as dominate the game with Bruno Guimaraes? And the answer is going to be yes. So even though I looked at the fixtures at Isak and thought, oh, they're a little bit tricky in the next three, I also think on the flip side, could he walk away with double-digit returns in all of them? And the answer is going to be yes. So I've paused on the Arsenal differentials. Isak in. I'm just getting it done. I know it's for a -4, but it is what it is. Pedro could be the last time in my team. Brentford at home, it just feels like it could be last chance saloon for him. And if he doesn't deliver in this fixture, I think a lot of people will mass sell him. And I'm keeping my boy Visser on the bench away against Brighton. So that is the team. I'm pretty content with it. As I mentioned, I've taken a -4, which is not ideal. In terms of captaincy, I was going to cover a section on it, but I'm just not, because I've told you, Mo Salah will be my captain 100,000% unless we get any sort of murmurs that he might be benched, which isn't out of the realms of possibility, but until I actually see that from a credible source, he will be my man. So that's the team. Let me know your plans in the comment section. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 18 team selection video. After taking a -4, this team is absolutely locked in. And this probably will be the last video of Game Week 18, especially before Christmas. I'll be traveling on Boxing Day and the deadline, of course, is 11 AM. So I won't be around to do a stream unless I could do one at like 8:30 in the morning, which I will update you if that is possible. So I have to wish you guys a Merry Christmas because I won't see you before then. Hope you have an amazing time with your families. Switch off from FPL for at least a day. Enjoy the day. Don't open the app and then come back to it on Boxing Day. If you have a bit of a panic, make sure you put your questions in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them between now and Boxing Day. Have a great Christmas, guys. Have a great game week and we'll talk real soon. Take care. Cheers.